Hello, everyone. This is Attorney Andre McKinney Dorval, AMD here. Guys, by now we have all heard the news. This past Monday, the Supreme Court has basically cleared the way so that the Trump administration can proceed with removing individuals to third countries. Now, guys, we reported to you and shared with you earlier in the year, Judge Murphy, the trial court judge, had entered an order that stated that the government could not remove individuals to third countries without providing them notice, written notice, and an opportunity to be heard. The non-citizens along with their attorney. Well, guys, the Trump administration filed application with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, without a written order, basically granted or approved the administration in being able to remove individuals to a third country. That is a country that a non-citizen has not been born in, very likely has never been to. Now, in that video we shared with you, huge ramifications with regards to this type of precedent for third country removals, particularly in countries such as South Sudan. Now, guys, South Sudan has a travel level warning of number 4, which means do not travel. And so this is a very volatile and unstable and potentially violent country to be in. I want to share with you an article that ABC News put out. Now, this article, as I stated, has been published by ABC News. The headline reads, Supreme Court allows Trump to resume speedier third country removals, but Boston judge says detainees in Djibouti still protected. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because this litigation is far from over. Now, the article reads, the Supreme Court's majority court on Monday delivered a significant win for the Trump administration's immigration policy, clearing the way for officials to resume deportation of migrants to third countries without additional due process requirements imposed by the district judge. It goes on to say that the nation's high court did not explain the decision, but it said the stay of the lower court judge's mandate would terminate should the administration ultimately lose an appeal on the merits. Litigation is ongoing, but is expected to take years to complete. The Supreme Court's order on Monday allows the Trump administration to resume carrying out expedited removals of dozens of unauthorized immigrants to countries other than their own. The lawsuit at the center of the case was originally filed by immigrants who were either deported to a third country without due process or at risk of being removed. The article goes on to read, before reaching the Supreme Court, the case had grown to encompass several other migrants, including 8 men convicted of violent crimes who were given notices of removal to the East African country of South Sudan. After District Court Judge Brian Murphy in Boston blocked the administration's attempt to deport the group to South Sudan without giving them a sufficient chance to contest their removal, the group disembarked in Djibouti, where they remain on a military base. Now, let's go a little bit further down. Now, here it goes on to indicate that that the ruling, referencing Judge Murphy's ruling, in an order on Monday, Murphy, this is the trial court, said that the 8 men in Djibouti remain protected from immediate removal despite the Supreme Court's ruling, referencing another order he had issued last month, separate from the one put on hold by the Supreme Court. That ruling required that the migrants in Djibouti to have reasonable fear interviews and a minimum of 15 days to seek to move to reopen immigration proceedings to challenge their potential removal to a third country. So let me give a little context here. So Judge Murphy, in his first order, he issued an order that said, okay, government, you cannot remove an individual, a non-citizen, to a third country without providing them with notice, written notice, and an opportunity to be heard on your desire or your ability to remove them to the third country. Last month, he entered a separate order that I believe the 8 men in question who remain at the military base, that those individuals specifically were to receive reasonable fear interviews. That is the order that speaks to these reasonable fear interviews and giving these individuals a minimum of 15 days to seek to reopen their immigration proceedings to challenge the removal to a third country. Now, in response to Murphy's latest order, and this is the order speaking on the reasonable fear, the White House Deputy Chief, Stephen Miller, said the Boston judge was refusing to obey the Supreme Court. Now, a little bit further down, the article goes on to report, in regard to the Supreme Court order, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Kagan, and Justice Jackson issued a dissent from the majority's order. Further down, it goes on to say that on part of Sotomayor, who writes, this court now intervenes to grant the government's emergency relief from an order it has repeatedly defied. And so that's the basis of her joining in dissent. And basically, the justices in the 19-page dissent, basically expressed their views in disagreement with the majority of the court. So what is happening now? Let's talk about specifically what next or what now with regards to the order that the Supreme Court entered on Monday, allowing the Trump administration to be able to remove individuals to third countries. Well, number one, the underlying litigation is still going on. They are still in litigation and fighting it out. So there isn't a final decision on the underlying substantive basis. But while that fight is still going on, individuals can be removed to third countries that they are not from, that they, in all likelihood, have never been to. So, what should someone do if you are faced with this situation? Well, number one, you should work with an attorney. And guys, it is important now more than ever that working with your attorney, you have got to challenge any due process violations. While that is substantively being argued by the parties, you still have to raise it. Also, if there is a fear of harm or torture to potentially a third country, you need to express that. And to the extent that you are able to, while working with an attorney, also provide as much evidence to support your claim or fear for being removed to a third country. Now, I mentioned to you from the article, there's 2 orders that Judge Murphy issued. Now, I believe it was today, the plaintiff's attorney representing the individuals who are fighting removal to a third country, they have made application to the Supreme Court, and that pertains to their ability to receive a reasonable fear interview as Judge Murphy ordered in the second order that was ordered last month. Now, interesting enough, this article indicates that this process could take years and litigation can be long, and it can be very prolonged in the sense that each side is fighting on paper. And unfortunately, guys, sometimes the fight on paper is longer than what people might expect. And so, in between the time and in the meantime, what is going to be happening is that individuals will be removed to third countries, even while the case is still being litigated. And one of the concerns with that is, what if at the end of the day, this litigation is said and done, and the plaintiffs who brought the litigation fighting the removal of individuals to third countries, what if they ultimately prevail? But by that time, many individuals would have already been deported to a third country. And as I mentioned in this video, countries like South Sudan have a travel warning level of number 4, meaning do not travel. It's a very, very unstable and dangerous place to be. And so this is definitely a fight over due process. And it's unclear, given yesterday's ruling by the Supreme Court, how it will ultimately end. Guys, I do thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will definitely see you in the next one. Bye-bye.